Everyone is gone, but you can bring them back with the power of friendship in Watam. Is crying, pooping, and stealing phone receivers more fun with a friend? The world in Watam is full of simple 3D shapes with tiny legs and tiny faces. With a simplistic storyline and dialogue, vivid colors, and childlike humor, the game initially feels more suitable for very young players. It's a strange world where you're rewarded for your exploration and pressing buttons with firework-like explosions, cheering cartoons, and poop jokes. The persistent sound of children's babbling and bawling bubbles over into a cacophony of sound as you create and discover more characters, so much that it becomes a bit overwhelming for someone who doesn't particularly like hearing children cry. With the emphasis on oversimplified emotion, either utmost joy or inconsolable tears, and hearty welcoming of new friends, we could see toddlers or preschool-aged children being utterly enthralled, but numerous glitches, awkward camera controls, and frustrating mechanics definitely require an adult level of patience to navigate.
Watam plays like your ordinary convoluted story made up on the school playground, where every step is decided by the imagination of creative kids. The mechanics even mirror playground activities like climbing trees and holding hands. Your early tasks include planting yourself as a seed that grows into a tree, that eats people and turns them into fruit. This attracts the attention of a table, that brings in a mouth, that eats the fruit and turns them into poop, attracting a toilet, and so on. As you progress, you attract or create new creatures that open up new possibilities. Objectives are given one at a time as you complete them. The next step usually isn't too difficult to figure out, with the exception of a glitch, and characters use minimal dialogue to indicate how the player must complete the next tasks to progress the story. There are opportunities for natural play and silliness, like seeing how many friends you can stack in a tower, or trying to make the biggest kumbaya circle known to man.
The world opens up like a large park where differently themed playgrounds are connected by a floating transit system made of living airboats. As these new parks open up, you'll have to shuttle specific characters manually between them to complete objectives. This is one area where the fiddly character selection mechanic is emphasized. In reality, you don't play a character in this game. You play a blue or red arrow that takes control of a character like a zombie fungus taking over an ant. You switch characters by moving the arrow with your analog stick until it's pointed at the character you want. That's easier said than done when 5 characters are stacked on top of each other in an impromptu gymnastics routine, or they're bunched up in a circle trying to smell the ground. Near the end, the game finally informs you about the character selection screen where you can scroll through all the characters you've discovered to find the one you need. When the game gets crowded with characters, movement is slowed down as you accidentally climb on other characters constantly. In general, movement and interactions feel imprecise, and some tasks will take more effort than you'd expect because of this. Because they're mapped to the same button, there's a high likelihood of unintentional explosions when you're simply trying to interact, and there's no simple or fun way to make the characters hold hands and dance in a circle, which is required multiple times. Outside of getting some mechanics to work correctly, there's very little challenge.
Like a school playground, there's a playfulness to the game that can be unwieldy. If you accidentally turn a character you need into a piece of meat, or a pile of poop, it's a convoluted process to get them back to normal. It's usually not a good sign when the opening of a co-op-enabled game only lets one person play. It reflects a lack of attention to the mode and introduces confusion over whether the game even has a 2-player mode. In Watam's case, it makes some sense thematically, as the beginning focuses on loneliness and slowly finding friends to interact with, but 3 characters are introduced in the opening sequence, and player 2 still has to wait until it's over before they're given any control. Thankfully, it only lasts a few minutes. When you get into the game proper, there's no real distinguishing factor between players. Any player can be any character, as long as the other isn't already controlling the character. Players have equal priority on the screen, and the screen will zoom in and out to accommodate the players moving away from each other. For better or worse, both players have complete control over the camera, which can be a problem if both of you are trying to focus on things in opposing directions. Zooming out is a major source of confusion, as the game will sometimes automatically switch which characters you control, so occasionally it's important that both players are on the same page over what they're currently doing and what they're doing next.
There's only one simple objective at a time, and few, if any, require teamwork. So when the disembodied mouth flies in on a giant table, only one player can run around turning fruit into poop, and only one player can then be the toilet that appears after, chasing down the anthropomorphic poop and flushing them. If the game is a playground, then your co-op partner is your best friend on the playground. There are opportunities for each of you to take the lead, for either of you to help out the other, and even for you to do your own thing apart, as long as you're both still on the same playground. There's a loose storyline centered on discovering new friends and bringing them back into the world. Picture book style cutscenes hint at an ominous backstory to explain why the world is mostly empty at the start of the game. The story is actually less abstract than you might expect, considering how wild the game seems, and it's interesting how everything ultimately comes full circle, but it's also very simple, like a picture book.
We experienced a lot of slowdown when the game attempted to transition to cutscenes, which made it look like the game was going to crash. And the game did crash on one occasion. Cutscenes have other problems, like when they trigger with the characters too close together, so it's difficult or impossible to see what's happening. Luckily, it's usually easy to guess. We had one instance where the game refused to recognize that we completed a task, halting our progress. We looked it up, and it's apparently a bug specific to playing in co-op. We had to exit the game and finish the task with one player in order to continue. Whether meant for kids or adults, Wattam is a juvenile experience. Even considering how short the game is, the pace is bogged down by awkward movement, bugs, and unnecessarily long cutscenes that break up the action. That's not to say the game can't be occasionally fun or charming. Like a zombie fungus, the game can be compelling, but it also makes you do some things you don't want to. If you're dying to relive recess with a friend, or have a kid to entertain for an afternoon, we'd give this one a soft recommend.